alien abductions. Some alien abductions. This fascinating report may have ended there were it not for the work of an intrepid investigative journalist, Cynthia Hyde, known during her lifetime as Africa's foremost UFO researcher, who was hot on the case the next day. When informed of the incident, Hyde wasted no time in contacting the headmaster of the Ariel School, Colin Mackey, and asked him to have the children draw pictures of what they seen in the schoolyard. When Hyde arrived at the scene of the encounter, Mackey had about 35 drawings waiting for her. They were all similar in depictions of the vehicle and the alien life form accompanying it. Hyde also investigated the area of the alleged landing with her son, a BBC reporter and electrical expert, Gunter Hoffer. Hoffer scanned the area with a Geiger counter, but no traces of radiation were found at the scene. Mackey, though personally skeptical about UFOs and alien visitation, confirmed to Hyde that he believed that the students were telling the truth. Hyde would later state that these rural school children had little or no exposure to TV or popular press of UFOs, press reports of UFOs.
All right. Hold on a second there.
Yeah.
So the school headmaster, Mackey, personal skeptic of UFOs, said that he believes all the kids are telling the truth.
Yeah.
And that the point we just made about the kids being well off, had little, no exposure to TV or popular press reports of UFOs. So if we believe that, then they didn't have much to draw reference from. These kids literally drew down what they saw.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, if that's true.
If that's true, of course.
Yes. Let's continue. It was at this point that American psychiatrist and leading authority on alleged UFO abduction experience, Dr. John Mack, got involved with the investigation. As luck would have it, Mack, a professor at Harvard Medical School and Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer, was traveling through Zimbabwe at the time of the event. As soon as he got wind of this odd encounter, he and his associate, Dominique Kalamanopoulos, journeyed to Rwanda, where they spent 2 days interviewing 12 of the children, their parents, and faculty. Mack's experience in child psychiatry enabled him to quickly gain the trust of his young witnesses, who were not only traumatized by this event, but no doubt mortified by the ridicule it would inspire. One little girl was so afraid of not being believed that she said, "I swear by every hair on my head and the whole Bible that I am telling the truth." According to Mack, the 12 children he interviewed gave consistent and reliable accounts of the occurrence, leading him to believe that this was not a case of mass hysteria, but a genuine alien encounter. Nevertheless, skeptics still abound. But even one of the most devoted doubters, an Ariel School teacher who withheld his name, claimed that he eventually changed his mind about the case due to the consistency of the reports from the kids. While the lack of adult witnesses has led to conclude that this incident is nothing more than a prank produced in the futile minds of precocious children, one must remember that it is remotely feasible for 62 preteens to concoct a successful hoax that requires the youngest of the bunch to feign terror while the eldest jeopardize their reputations by claiming to not only have seen the alien, but also shared a psychic connection to it. Not to mention the sheer psychological effort that it would take to collaborate a tale as elaborate as this. It should also be noted that in the 16 years following this harrowing event, there has been no public claims that this was a hoax made by eyewitnesses, some of whom are now parents themselves. While it's difficult to ascertain if these additional events had anything to do with a close encounter of the third kind that occurred at the Ariel School on September 16th, it bears mentioning that the morning of September 14th, eyewitnesses across Africa also claimed to see a meteor-like object. As if there weren't astonishing enough, over 100 children at the Piers House School, which is located 25 miles from Wawa, watched as a UFO hovered and apparently searched for a place to land. At the same time, the school kids at Pier House were awed by the celestial antics. All the school buses in the Warwa School District apparently lost their use of their radios, receiving nothing but static. Of course, it wasn't long before the Ariel School Encounter put the small farming community of Roa, Zimbabwe on the map. The event made headlines all over the world and became the subject of numerous television reports. This event has become Africa's equivalent to the now legendary Roswell incident and is considered by some investigators to be one of the best close encounter cases in the long history of ufology. Will Bunch, board member of the John E. Mack Institute in Cambridge, summed up his opinion on the strange and frightening meeting in the words. Something strange happened to a group of children that left them with the impression some form of sentient life cared about the earth and cared about the environment, and even cared about the children. Bunch's assumption seems debatable considering the frightened reactions the children had to this alien entity and the message hidden behind his horrible black eyes. But still, one can't help but to wonder, did these creatures come to warn us about the consequences of environmental abuse so they can make changes necessary to reverse the effects, or was it issuing a thinly veiled threat? A final decree telling the human race in no uncertain terms to fix our world or else.
I mean, so you have the incident happened at the school where the kids saw the actual aliens. 25 miles away, another school where 100 kids saw a UFO searching up for a place to land. Meanwhile, 2 days before any of this happened, there was sightings of meteor-like objects flying through the skies of Africa. So, where there's smoke, there's a fire. The kids aren't fucking lying. You can't have 62 kids of varying ages, and like it said in the report here, some 16 years old, willing to put their reputation on the line, willing to not just their reputation, willing to come home and get beat by their fucking moms and dads for, lying, quote unquote, and like making this whole thing up. Why? Why would that be a thing? Okay, kids play pranks all the time, I understand, but 62 kids in varying all ages, like it said a second ago here. All the meanwhile, you're going to have a bunch of young, like 6-year-olds pretend to be terrorized. Like, come on.
Yeah. Again, this sounds so similar like the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter. Because there were children involved in that too. And they've grown up. These kids are all adults. And their story still stays the same.
Yeah, of the 62 kids of the ones that they have had a chance to contact or have been willing to come out and talk again, none of them have reverted their story. They all still claim the same thing. Yeah,
and their stories that the kids they talked to directly after the incident were all similar. They're all the same thing.
Yep.
They're all the same.
Throw out the part about them telepathically receiving messages from alien creatures about the impending doom of planet Earth. Throw that part out, all right? Figment of imagination, whatever the terrified kids like making up something to explain that moment in their own heads. But 62 kids are lying about a UFO landing out 100 yards, 300 feet, 100 yards outside of their school, and some 3-foot creatures walking out, like, and they still, all of the ones that they're able to contact are still claiming the same.
Yeah. Let me play devil's advocate here, because there's going to be people, no matter what, that's going to doubt this story. Let me play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
All right, you have school children. Children do have a propensity to lie, but they eventually tell the truth. That's thrown out. That's just thrown out because they still have the same story to this day. It could be possibly two things on the skeptic side that might explain this. One, mass hysteria.
Sure.
It could be mass hysteria that they thought they saw something and interpreted, and all their minds interpreted it into something else. Like it might have been, I don't know, one of the trees might have dropped something, or some indigenous animal other than a spider or a snake that's in Zimbabwe might have fell down, or something. Something fell out of the sky. Airplane part might have fell out the sky, and everyone doesn't interpret it to what it is, a terrestrial object, and it might be something else. They interpret it to be something else entirely. It could be that. What concerns me on the skeptic side is that it was 91 degrees out at 10 a.m. in September.
In the dead middle, not middle, but dead ass, middle of the morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people were like, Africa gets hot, but it's 10 a.m. and it's 91 degrees. That's what, I mean, might be heat stroke, but like, it might put, like, it might, what?
I didn't the heat stroke route. I thought you were saying that they maybe saw like a mirage because of the heat. Like,
it might have been. It could have been.
That's too funny. Sorry.
Yeah, it could have been that. It could have been.
I was like readying up an answer, like a rebuttal to your mirage theory, and then you come in with a heat stroke.
Could be heat stroke. Could be. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm looking at the weather in Zimbabwe right now. It is in the capital. It is 51 degrees right now at 3 a.m. Wednesday.
Yes.
Their spring runs from April to May. Their June and July are their coldest. Their autumn and August starts to warm up in pretty months. Okay. So right now they're in their wet season. No, they're not. They're in their dry season. Excuse me. They're in their dry season. Dry season is colder. The wet season is usually wet. That's interesting.
So let's get back on the story here. Like,
yeah.
if what you're saying, if the things you're saying are a possibility, they sound as objectively verifiable as swamp gas in Mars being seen through light refractions. Like,
right.
It's just
they weren't near a swamp. That area that they were by, that school was by, is not near a swamp. So
no. The point I was trying to make is like, trying to debunk 62 children claiming they saw something by whatever.
It's hard.
It's hard. It sounds kind of ridiculous trying to debunk 62 kids' claims.
Like, it might have been a mirage or something, but no one else had saw it. The adults were indoors, and they took it to, like, the only evidence I would go to is that they didn't encounter a UFO with alien occupants in the UFO, that it might have been something to do with the weather. It might have been a mirage, but even that has a hard time of standing up, because they said this thing got out of the craft and walked up to them.
Bro, that's my point.
And walked behind the craft. So this is a very...
That's my point. The accounts are so descriptive that, like, for a bunch of village school kids who claiming, according to the story, don't have much access to television or Western media.
Yeah.
For them to just jump to the conclusion that it's aliens seems highly unlikely to me.
Right.
Unless if they actually saw something.
Yeah, and even in a mirage, not everyone sees the same thing in a mirage.
Right.
That's another issue. Like, me and you might be out in the desert, and we're looking at a mirage, and you might see someone walking. I might see a bird. Not everyone sees the same thing in a mirage.